Hey guys, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. And while undoubtedly the most exciting thing about patch 917 are the two new Swedish branches, there are also a wealth of changes to some of your favorite Tier 8 premium tanks. This video will update you with all of the changes so you can continue to take them out effectively on the battlefield, and if you've got them in your garage already, whether it's worth dusting them off and bringing them back to the battlefield in patch 917. So firstly, one of the oldest Tier 8 premium tanks in the game, the Tier 8 German Lowe, is getting some love in patch 917. ZippyHo Tankopedia has actually got a fantastic feature that allows you to change the version of the game. So here we can see 916 and the common test server 917. And when we scroll down the list, the changes are highlighted for us. Firstly, the Lowe is going to have 10 extra millimeters of frontal hull armor. The 917 Lowe, on the other hand, has 130 millimeters of hull armor on the upper plate and 120 millimeters on the lower plate. And one very interesting thing is they've given this flat bar that you can see across the middle of the front plate here 225 millimeters of protection, because previously this plate was actually one of the weak points of the vehicle because it was flat when you were shooting it side on. Now in patch 917 that is no longer going to be the case, and it will be very much thicker than hitting the lower plate altogether. Furthermore, the side armor of the Lowe is being increased by 20 millimeters. This is very significant. That means that the side armor of the Lowe at this kind of an angle changes from 140 millimeters of effective armor to 170 nearly. And also one thing that Wargaming failed to document on their website is that it looks like the turret armor on the Lowe is going to be improved as well. Previously, if you were to shoot the cheeks of the Lowe around here with about 200 to 225 millimeters of penetration, you had a good chance of penetrating the turret. In the next patch, that is simply not going to be the case, because now it's 180 millimeters of armor on the cheeks of this Tier 8 German heavy tank, when previously it was 120. Finally, the gun depression of this tank is going to be buffed as well. Let's use the maximum gun depression in 916, turn the vehicle side on, and now let's take a look at the maximum gun depression in 917 and turn the vehicle equally side on. We can see clearly that you're going to be able to depress the gun by an extra 2 degrees, which will make this tank very much more competitive on ridgelines. Next up, it looks like Wargaming have finally admitted that the FE4202P was just too slow. This Tier 8 premium British medium tank was the slowest high tier medium in the game, and it's getting a top speed limit buff from 35 to 40, which should help this tank a lot. And if that wasn't enough, Wargaming are also increasing the profitability of this tank by 10%. And this has been a whole series of buffs to the FE4202P, which was frankly horrific when it was released as a mission marathon reward. Next up, Japanese medium tank drivers will rejoice as the STA2 is getting a new engine. Here we can clearly see that the old STA2 had a Tier 7 Mitsubishi DLT10T engine, whereas in patch 917 the STA2 will have a Tier 8 Mitsubishi 12HM20WT, that's a bit of a mouthful, engine. This increases the horsepower of the tank by 70, and while it doesn't get any heavier, giving it a much better specific power ratio, going from 14.71 up to 16.76, which should certainly help the acceleration and overall handling of this tank. Furthermore, the vehicle is actually being made rather fast as well. Previously it was limited at 45 kilometers an hour. Now it is going to be limited at 55 kilometers an hour. And also the vehicle is going to have a lower chance to be set on fire, going from 15 to 12 when the engine is hit. Next up, we're looking at the M4A1 Revel, which is definitely getting one of, if not the biggest buffs out of any of the premium tanks in patch 917. Firstly, the vehicle's engine power is increasing by 20% from 460 to 550, which makes this tank finally have a decent specific power ratio of 15.71, up from 13.14. Next, the gun on this tank is getting mega buffed. Firstly, the gun depression is increasing from 7 degrees down to 10 degrees. Look at the big difference between 916 here and 917. This should make the tank massively more flexible on the ridge lines. And if 3 degrees of gun depression wasn't enough, the tank is also getting a buff of 0.4 aim time down to 2.4, a tiny accuracy buff of 0.01, and some dispersion buffs as well to further improve the aim time. This will certainly be a massive buff to the tank, and I cannot wait to dust it off and bring it to the battlefield in 917. Next up, a Tier 8 premium medium tank, which unfortunately holds the title for lowest win ratio of any Tier 8 medium tank, is getting a nice buff. Its horsepower is increasing from 600 to 700, which will certainly help the power to weight ratio of this tank, increasing it to over 15. And furthermore, the vehicle is also gaining some rotation speed, going from 38 to 40 degrees. But there's also a couple of things happening to this tank that Wargaming for some reason didn't write in their update page. They're actually changing the shape of the Panther 88. Here we can see it in patch 916, and here we can see in patch 917. Do you see how the vehicle just gets a little bit taller on the turret? And this is being picked up in model viewers too. Here Tanks GG showing it in 916 and here in 917. But that's not all. Wargaming have increased the hull armor on the upper plate from 80mm to 85mm. And so not only is this vehicle going to be significantly faster, but it should also be a little bit more resilient. One thing that also seems strange, and it makes me wonder if this is a bug with the test server and the model of this tank, is that as we can see previously in 916, the Panther 88 had trouble depressing its gun over the front of the vehicle and also over the rear of the vehicle. In 917, at least with the current model, it has the same gun depression all over the place, apart from this weird part over the back of the tank where it's unable to depress over one corner but can depress over the other. So we'll certainly have to wait to see if this actually happens, but if it does, it will be a significant buff to the Panther 88. And finally, there are some significant changes to the Tier 8 Chinese premium heavy tank, the WZ-111. Here we see the 916 111 on the left, the 917 111 in the middle, and I'm also going to compare it for you to the 112, which is obviously a direct competitor to this vehicle. In patch 916, the 111 has a worse engine at 520 horsepower to the 112's 580 horsepower. This is being increased to 600 horsepower in patch 917, which means that it leapfrogs the 112 specific power ratio to just under 13.5. And while in patch 916, the 111 and the 112 have the same gun handling, in patch 917 the 111 will leave the 112 slightly behind in this regard. It's getting an aim time buff to 3 seconds from 3.4, a 0.02 accuracy buff, and this is quite significant, a 0.03 reduction in the dispersion when moving, and also a 0.02 reduction when turning the turret, which gives it the same turret dispersion as the 112. Now while these two tanks are so darn similar that it's very hard to tell them apart, I guess what Wargaming are trying to do is to make the 111 the faster tank with the worse armor and the better gun. Nevertheless, certainly a decent buff for a lover of Chinese premium heavy tanks. And so there you go guys, changes to Tier 8 premium tanks that were probably not your favorite, but maybe they're gonna be next patch. I cannot wait for the M4A1 Revel changes. I have no idea why they're giving it absolutely so much love. I think that's probably going to be one of the better Tier 8 premium medium tanks next patch. Either way, hopefully this video was useful to you, or maybe you just enjoyed it. If you did, please consider giving it a like. It really helps the channel out. And let me know in the comments down below what you think about all these changes coming up to the premium vehicles. Do you think that it's going to make you bring any of them or all of them out on the battlefield next patch? And do you think this affects some of the competition there was between the premium tanks, for example the WZ-111 and the 112, the Panther 88 and the Mutz, the M4A1 Revalorise, and also the AMX CDC. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.